It's when we're working just to stay busy. It's when we're working without a goal in mind that we just end up losing energy and burning out or just being unhappy.
Pat Flynn from the Smart Passive Income Podcast.
An old school podcaster, really one of the OG podcasters from the very beginning of podcasting.
Pat is an innovative creator. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author, YouTuber, inventor.
Pat Flynn is the nicest person you'll ever meet on the internet.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to passive income?
The biggest thing is that it's actually totally automatic.
If people are interested in passive income, what do you think right now is the easiest way to get started?
You have to start.
I'm Erika Kullberg, and you're listening to the Erika Taught Me podcast. So Pat, now you're known as the smart passive income guy, but years prior, you were laid off from your job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what got you started into exploring passive income. What was that like? What was going through your head at that point?
I mean, I remember the day I got laid off. I didn't want to get laid off. This was 2008, and a lot of people got laid off. I didn't think that I did everything I could to hold my job, right? I was performing at my peak. I was doing a lot more than I was asked of. I was working at an architectural firm. It was my dream to start an architectural firm when I was older, and then to go into my boss's office, sit down and have him say, Pat, you're one of the youngest, brightest guys I know, but unfortunately we have to let you go. It was a blow. It reminded me of when I fell on my skateboard when I was a kid and I got the wind knocked out of me and I couldn't breathe. That's how I was feeling. Somebody just punched me in the gut. And my first reaction was, well, I couldn't believe this. Is this for real? Is this a joke? And then it turned into anger, and then it turned into worry. And the biggest reason why I was worrying is because just a couple months prior, I had proposed to my girlfriend and we were supposed to get married. And now everything was changing. So I went back to my desk, and the first thing I did was I called every single engineering firm that we worked with, every other architecture firm, and I was just literally begging, are there any openings, please? Because I couldn't imagine life doing anything else, because it was my passion. And to have worked so hard for something and to still get let go, I know it wasn't my fault, but it just hurt a lot. So I was begging and pleading. I was like, I'll do anything. I'll do executive. It doesn't matter. I just want to be in this space. But when they weren't letting me back in, I realized that this was going to be a permanent thing for a while, at least. So I went back to my apartment. My fiance was going to come in a couple hours later, and she did. And she saw me crying, in the bed. And I had texted her earlier that I was, getting laid off. And she came over to me. She didn't say a word. She just gave me a hug and said, eventually, we're going to be okay. And to just hear those words, we are going to be okay, just took away most of the worry that was in my head. Luckily, because I had a certain level at my job, I wasn't let go that day. So they had to kind of slowly let me go and transition my clients to other people. So I had some time, a month and a half, to kind of figure things out. And I remember I actually ended up moving back with my parents. My fiance moved back in with her parents because I'm half Filipino. My wife's Filipina. And when you have a wedding and you're Filipino, it's going to be a big wedding. It's going to cost a lot of money. And there's going to be people there that you don't even know because your parents brought them. And so we're like, okay, we got to save money. So that was hard too. It almost felt like going backwards in life. I love my parents. I was thankful that they kind of let me crash, but it didn't feel like I was going the right way.
How old were you?
I was 25. And again, I had my whole life planned out. And then rip, it just got kind of taken away from me. Well, I remember taking the train because it was cheaper than driving up to Irvine from San Diego. So I took an 1.5 to 2 hour train ride every day to go to my last final days at work. And I remember sitting on the train and watching people come in with their briefcases and their laptops and feeling so jealous, you still have your job. And I was making up stories about how happy their lives were and how unhappy my life is when, I had no idea what their lives were like. All I could think about was I need a job. I need to make money. Now, I'm very lucky at the time because this is right when podcasts were coming out. And there was one podcast called Internet Business Mastery. It changed my life. So when I heard this podcast, I think it was the first episode I listened to, there was an interview with a guy named Cornelius Fitchner. The hosts were Jeremy and Jason. And they interviewed Cornelius, and he was talking about how he was making 6 figures a year online by helping people pass the project management exam or the PM exam. And essentially people would sign up to his course or buy his study material, and he would get paid, and they would get it automatically delivered to them. And I was just like, this is fascinating. I can't believe this is real. could I do this too? And I remember, wow, I took a lot of tests when becoming an architect. And there was one in particular that was very difficult, that didn't have a lot of exam materials, called the LEED exam. And I just ended up building a website to help people pass that exam. It did way better than I ever thought it would. I had no idea what I was doing. But to fast forward to October of 2008, I was told I was going to be let go in March. But the same month that I was permanently let go was the same month I launched my study guide for that audience, that small audience that I built there. And it had made $7,908.55 from a $29 ebook, an ebook. I didn't even know what an ebook was. It was so new at the time. And then immediately I thought, oh my gosh, this is life changing. And then immediately my mind changed to, oh my gosh, the FBI is going to come and knock on my door, because this does not feel like, this seems way easier than I thought it was going to be. I must be doing something illegal or wrong, or I don't know. And of course, the FBI never came. Knock on wood. I've always followed the rules. I try to. And then the income just continued to grow more and more and more. And eventually people started to see what I was doing and say, Pat, how did you do that? And that's where Smart Passive Income was born, to help others and show others how this was done. Fast forward to today, here I am with you, Erika. I'm keynoting events. I've written books, and I have made over $7 million since then. It's been absolutely life-changing. I've been able to build schools and places around the world and do all these things that I never even thought possible, all because I got laid off. So thank you to my boss. Thank you for letting me go. And as some people have said, getting rid of that ball and chain that I was tied to in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Which I know you could relate to.
And for people who don't know, it's just background. The difference between passive income and active income is active income is what we're all used to when we go to our 9 to 5. We trade our time for money. Passive income is you may put a lot of time or money up front with the hope that you'll be able to reap those benefits monetarily going down the future.
Exactly.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to passive income?
The biggest thing is that it's actually totally automatic and you just have to press a button and then it's going to happen. It's not true. In order to get to passive income, you have to start with very active sort of income. And it's not active in a way where you trade 8 hours of time and you get paid for 8 hours. You might dedicate hundreds of hours into something and not get paid anything up front. As you are building, as you're creating an audience, as you are proving yourself, as you're sharing your expertise and building an audience on these platforms. And then you can, I don't even like to say cash in. Then you can begin to serve your audience with opportunities like courses or consulting or software even. I mean, I think that, the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when trying to start a business online is, well, what should I sell? That's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, who am I serving and what do they need help with? And in my world of architecture, people were needing help passing this exam. And that's something I knew and I could bring to them. But it didn't happen overnight. I think a lot of people think this happens overnight, and it's not 100% forever. You build it and it's going to work forever. I mean, there are a few things that are like that, right? Royalties to books and other media, movies and whatnot, but you still got to upkeep what's going on. I mean, some people call real estate passive income, and it is in a sense, but the market's always changing. You have to upkeep your properties and such. So it takes some awareness of what's happening to keep it going. But I could take a week off, I could take a month off, and the businesses continue to run. And they continue to run because there are software that can deliver things that people pay for automatically without me having to touch it. And in some of my other businesses, because I own multiple, where there is a human touch needed, it's just not me. It's a team or somebody else, maybe on the other side of the world, helping to make sure things get delivered and whatnot. But I think that distinction is really, really key. Active. The beauty of the internet is it has allowed us to asynchronously serve others. So you can, like you said, dedicate some time up front, reap the benefits later. Some of that stuff has a very long tail opportunity to continue to profit over time. I mean, people are still going to that website that I built in 2009 or 2008.
Wow.
And are still making purchases. And I'm still seeing a couple $1,000s a month from that. From work I did, a lot of hard work up front back in 2008. And I mean, I must have dozens of things that are kind of acting like that right now. But you got to get started. It's not easy. You need to get help, and you're going to have no idea what you're doing, and it's scary and it's different. And your parents are going to be like, go get a real job. Like, that's kind of the thing I got.
Yeah.
I know you got the same thing, and we're worried about that. But it took a little bit of time. And I think we're in an age now where, yeah, wow. I mean, you could be a TikToker and make money, which is that's like, I feel old thinking that, wow, you can really do that now, because that's what people thought about me when I started.
Are you on TikTok yet?
I am on TikTok more as a consumer. It's my like, it's fun.
What are your different passive income streams and active income streams that you have right now?
So right now, I have websites that are available that people can go to purchase or get solutions to problems that they might have, right? So that architecture website is up there. On Smart Passive Income, I have different courses available. So online courses are great because you build the online course and people can come through them whenever. I mean, I have people searching for how to start a podcast all the time, for example, and they might come across my promotional page and then go into my course. And then by the end of it, they have a podcast and it's up on all the platforms and they're building audience. The key with anything that you sell is it has to transform your audience, right? I had considered creating an all-in-one, like, hey, I'm going to create the online course that includes everything: podcasting, email, affiliate marketing, whatnot. But people have a specific problem and they want a specific solution, right? There's a story about a guy who created a universal bug spray, right? It killed every bug. He brought it to the store, put it on the can. It said killed all bugs. Like, that's attractive. It didn't sell at all. Nobody bought it. He took the same solution home. He relabeled the bottles as, here is the cockroach spray, here's the ant spray, here's the the fly spray or whatever, and they sold because people have an ant problem, people have a cockroach problem, people have problems with flies at their home, so they're going to buy the solution for that. And especially today with so much noise out there, it's really important that people know what you can do for them and specifically to the problems that they have. So we talked about these websites and online courses. I also have what's called affiliate marketing, which I think is the easiest way to generate an income online, the easiest to start with, because you don't need to create the product. You just need to point people to the right products that already exist. So if you have an audience and you know what their goals are, right? You could just say, hey, I use this product. I endorse it. I love it. Here's my link, which then connects it to your account so that when a person becomes a customer, that company will pay you as like a commission, as a thank you. And I know you do some affiliate marketing, and it's, again, you could get started with that today if you wanted to.
Yeah.
We all recommend things to our friends. What if you got paid for that, right? But there's a big problem with that, because you can choose any product and promote it and make money from it. Many people just choose products because it has a really high commission, because it's going to make them a lot of money. But what ends up happening is, in the long term, people start to see that, well, you're just promoting things because it's making you money, not because it's actually helpful. So always start with service to your audience in mind first. Serve first is one of my phrases. It always pays you back in one way or another over time.
Yeah.
Software. I have some software in the podcasting space for different players on websites and hosting and whatnot. So that's another income stream. I've written books. I have 3 books now. I'm in works with a proposal for another one right now, which is really exciting. But these books, all the way published back from 2013, continue to sell every day. And again, that hard work put up front to create something valuable continues to help people today. So I have those books. Those are more passive forms of income. More active forms of income today is I coach people and one-on-one, and I consult various businesses. And of course, if I don't show up on that call, then I can't help them. So it's very active. I have to be there. I am trading my time for money in that case.
How do you decide when active income becomes worth it? Because I'm kind of in my phase where I don't want to do anything active income. I'm in the building passive income phase.
Yeah.
So I mostly turn down active income opportunities.
And that's totally okay. That's totally okay. I think it depends on what lights you up, right? And I think that's a really important question everybody needs to ask themselves, right? What lights you up? That's actually the first question I always ask people when I meet them. I'm not like, what do you do? I'm like, what lights you up? That tells me way more about a person than just what career they have, right? And then it eventually gets into career. But anyway, I do one-on-one consultations and coaching because I just really want to help those people, right? And these are people that I've had a relationship with for a while, who have taken my courses, who have gotten to know their business. I know the impact that they have, and I can impact people through them in a way, right? There's that ripple effect, and I can help make their ripples even bigger. And through them, I'm able to help even more people. So that impact is important. It's like I'm so grateful to say it's not about the money anymore. It was at first. At first, it was like, I just need to survive.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you left your corporate job, it was like, well, how am I going to pay for all this stuff I need to pay for now? Again, we're at a point now where we have options. And that's really what passive income can allow, because now I choose to coach these people. I choose to do these consultations. I choose to advise these companies in the creator space because that's what lights me up.
Mhm.
And I just am so happy that I can do that versus, well, I just got to make ends meet. So I'm going to do something that my boss tells me to do and miss out on things in my life that I wish I didn't. Right. How do you choose what to focus on is in terms of, I mean, I know you're focused on passive income right now, but even in then, there's dozens of ways you could go. Like, how do you choose which way you go?
I care about impact a lot now. So I'm thinking about my time in terms of with this hour I have in my day, how can I impact the most number of people? And right now, that translates mostly to social media content. So I'm spending a lot of my time creating the videos, creating the podcast. I think my mindset has shifted as the financial situation has changed.
Hmm.
When I first quit my job, it was kind of figuring out how I could validate that I would be able to make enough money to live and not have to go back to a law firm.
Sure.
So back then, I was trying everything. I think I discovered your Smart Passive Income podcast right before I was going to quit. And it planted the seed in my mind that, oh, ebooks are the best way to make passive income. So I don't think I've ever told this story, and I hope people don't search it and find this book. But I was living in Tokyo, Japan at the time, and there was the Rugby World Cup happening. And so I decided to create a complete Japan guidebook on the Rugby World Cup. I've never watched rugby in my life. So I had to just research about rugby, find the different stadiums that were happening, and try to sell this ebook. And I don't think I made any money. I think I probably put a full month into it and maybe sold 10 copies at $10 a piece.
Still good.
But the learning experience of learning how to build a website, learning how to create the ebook, learning how to format it, learning how to use Facebook ads to get paid traffic, building up an email list. Like there were so many things that I learned from that little experience that all in all, I see it as a huge win. I mean, I basically went through a mini MBA just doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. By putting yourself in that situation, I mean, the rewards far outweigh the risks when it comes to the online space to be able to try something. But I still know it intimidates people to kind of create something and maybe feel like that's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But I love how you're thinking about it as well. Sure, I didn't make a ton of money from it, but it's lessons that will help me make more money down the road.
But I did it secretly too. I didn't put my name on it. I created some kind of company.
What were you worried about? Why didn't you put your name
Oh,
on?
of course I was going to be embarrassed if someone from the law firm saw it and said, wow, like Erika used to be this top corporate lawyer and now she's selling ebooks on Rugby World Cup. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to see this little experiment.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I mean, the amount of weight that we put on what other people think of us is I mean, I don't know where that comes from, childhood or, our cultures or whatever. It's just so hard to get through that. And that was very difficult for me becoming an entrepreneur because I thought it was a failure and I didn't want to let my parents down. And even as I became an entrepreneur, there were moments where there were trolls and haters who came about who, were so upset at their own choices that they had to bring down other people. And at one point there was a comment on one of my blogs that just tore me to pieces. And, I learned, okay, if there's a comment like that on your website, just delete it. Problem was this person took this comment and pasted it on 50 other websites where I was featured as a podcast guest or a blog post guest. And so I woke up the next morning and my friends and colleagues were saying, hey, who's this guy talking like smack about you? He's just going on this rampage. And I quit. I quit for a whole month. I didn't post any content. I didn't want to be online. I just didn't want to be in this world. And then I'm very grateful because I have a friend named Derek who reached out to me. He was worried. He said, Pat, where are you? And I told him the story about what happened. I just can't face the online world anymore. It's just too scary and it just hurts so much. I should just go back and get a job. And he said, Pat, dude, I'm so mad at you right now. And I was like, oh, now you're mad at me too? Like, why? And he said, no, I'm mad at you because every second you waste on this hater is a second that you're taking away from all the people who love your work and who need you and want you to show up. And why are you allowing this person to control your life? And that snapped me back into reality. Later, I found out that this person was doing what he was doing because he saw me as an easy target to get more traffic to his website.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
One of my videos on YouTube is about why I quit my $250,000 job as a lawyer. And in it, I talk about how I was so scared of my whole life. I had spent so scared of like what people would think, what my parents would think. And that's why I followed this very traditional path. And one of the comments on it, it was really beautiful. It was saying that the people who judge you and say that you're embarrassing for even trying to go out there to do something different with your life, they're reflecting their own insecurities because they're scared to do it themselves.
Mhm.
So they don't like seeing you do that.
One of my friends said, hurt people hurt people. So whenever I receive one of those kinds of comments now, I try to lead with empathy versus leading with retaliation. And that allows me to wonder, at least, well, what is happening in this person's life to do such things? I hope they're okay. And, you know, maybe we can just let it be, but other times I do reach out to them and ask them if everything's okay, and eventually find out that they're going through tough times, and many times they do apologize.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And some of those people have become some of my super fans since then, because somebody finally was able to sort of just at least be there to listen.
If people are interested in passive income, what do you think right now is the easiest way to get started?
So I call this the 5-1 strategy. All right. Pick one group of people that you want to serve. It could be anybody, just one group, a target market or a niche, as they might call it. Then go into that group and find one problem that those people have. They're going to have many problems, even if you choose a market like fitness, right? Okay, well, within fitness, there's so many things. And even within the field of, let's say, running, there's so many things that people might need help with. Choosing the right shoes, or if they're going to run ultra marathons, how do you train for that? If you're going to run your first 5K, it's so different, right? So every subgroup of people has a very specific set of needs and problems and wants, a specific language that you should learn about, because that's how you can relate and talk about things with them. From there, I would find one person, try to connect with them in a group or reach out to them. It might be somebody you know already. Help them get one result, and then take that one result and turn it into a testimonial. And when you go through those 5 things, a number of things happen. Number one, it forces you to choose a group of people to serve, right? When you try to build something that serves everybody, you're actually doing a great job of serving nobody, right? You have to be specific. The riches are in the niches. I know it's pronounced niches, but it rhymes better that way. And when you do that, you also are tasked to, well, how do I find the one person? So you need to kind of get the courage to talk and try to find one. It's better to find one than 10 than 100. Like we sometimes think, oh, we need a business. Okay, we need to find thousands of people. No, just one. Because when you learn about how to reach out to that one person, you'll learn exactly what it takes to reach out to many more. And then helping that one person get a transformation, you're now able to see, well, how might you be able to help them? It's not going to be built on a website even, or on an online course. You don't need an email list. Just trade DMs or get on a chat or text string together to help that person get that result, and whatever it takes, because you're going to learn what the roadblocks are, the obstacles, the things that are stopping this person from moving forward that you can help them through, which is now all information that you can use when you start to help more and more people. And then when you get that testimonial, that person saying, oh my gosh, Erika, it was because of you I did this. It unlocks that confidence that you need to get that thing out there. Because that's the biggest thing that most people struggle with. Even if they know they have the best solution, they're not sure if it's working yet. And when you have that sort of, even just an ounce of doubt that what it is that you're putting out there in the world might not actually be helpful, or is maybe not something that can serve somebody, it comes across in your tone in your videos and your emails. It just doesn't feel as genuine. And to you, it almost feels slimy because you haven't proven it yet. So when you find that one person and you get that result, and you get that testimonial, which of course you can then use to help market it later, the confidence that you have, it almost now feels like your responsibility now to help more, right? If the analogy was you have this cure for this disease, wouldn't you not feel the responsibility and obligation to go out there and help cure more people's diseases who have that disease that you have the solution for? It just unlocks a whole new sort of wave of momentum when you reach that point. And that's the easiest way to get started. And then you also might find that, you don't like teaching a person in a certain way, that you prefer to do it maybe through email. Cool. You can teach others through that means too, because you've learned that about you. Or maybe you do love the one-on-one and you can do a little bit more consultation. Or maybe you can imagine helping a few people all at once. And then you can do sort of a group cohort style form of teaching. So much is learned by just getting one person, one result.
What are the most important lessons around passive income that you yourself have learned through trial and error?
You have to start active first. The passive comes from building systems. systems of automation, systems of maybe other people getting on board, and learning how to deliver that solution in a way that doesn't require you to always have to be there to do it. Like I remember specifically, and I do got to give credit to where credit's due. A lot of this is a result of Tim Ferriss in his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. I read that when I got laid off, and it really helped me set the tone with how I build these businesses. I could have built a architecture study guide business that required me to print all these books and to go to the post office and return them and get all the mechanics of that. But I removed that part of it. It was all online because I wanted it to be as passive as possible. And then having a website to sort of bring people in, to attract people. Back then it was through search engine optimization. So I wrote a lot of articles that got really high on search engines, and that's how people found me. People also found me by word of mouth inside of forums and such. So when you create good stuff, people will share it. Nowadays, you have the availability of spending money on ads to get in front of the right people, and things are so targeted these days. I was talking to somebody the other day who is spending $50,000 a month on TikTok advertising.
Wow.
Because they're able to get in front of the right people, and every month they're making $100,000 more than they're spending because they're getting in front of that targeted audience on that platform. So that's how you can sort of start that sequence. But then again, over time, you have to show your expertise. You have to prove that you know what you're talking about, and then get them into something. The other lessons are, listen to the people who you've already helped. When you start to have customers come your way already, your best customers are your current customers, because they're going to tell you, well, here's what I need next. And so that's something I did with the lead exam stuff. Is I help people study for this exam. And then they started to come to me and say, hey, Pat, I would love practice exams or something, to be able to just know if I'm learning the material or not. And so I listened to that and I said, okay, well, let me create some practice exams for you. But it ended up that there was a company out there called Green Building Education Services that made the best practice exam. And I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'd love to promote your company as sort of a step 2 to people who buy my book. What do you say? And they said, sure, we'll pay you $22 for every person who comes through. And it was a $79 product. And this is affiliate marketing at play. So the first month I had made $6,000 from just telling everybody who bought my stuff to go here too, to supplement that material. And it was like, it just didn't feel real. It's like, wow, this came out of nowhere. Like it was just out of thin air. It felt like, but it wasn't, because I listened to what they needed and I found a solution that was better than one that I could create myself.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I know the best way to help you is to go over here. And that company wanted to partner with me. So that was my first experience with affiliate marketing, and the fact that like you can help people and get paid too
without having to do any of the customer service or the back end work.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I like about the passive income though is I always say that you have to either have time or money to get started. And it sounds like for both of us, we had time on our hands, not really money. And if you have time on your hands, building an audience seems like the path to go. I mean, that's what we both found success with. And it's not an overnight success. For YouTube, when I started posting videos on YouTube, it took me one video a week for 6 months, I believe, to hit 2,000 subscribers, which was just enough to be able to make maybe about $1,000 a month from it. So it didn't quite cover my living expenses at that point, but then you build on that. Then you have that one viral video that will help you out.
Yeah.
But that's what I really like, is that it is, I think anyone can do this.
I agree with that. But not everyone will.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's a result of what's the conversation we're all having with ourselves up here. And there were so many moments, even after I became successful and started making money, that I just continued to doubt myself. There's a really good book by a man named Steven Pressfield called The War of Art. And it speaks to this idea that we as creatives, entrepreneurs, musicians, whatever creative you are, the bigger you try to do something, the bigger the shadow that it's casting, and the harder it is to get through that. And we often self-sabotage through procrastination or self-doubt by putting ourselves in a situation to fail because we just expect it to happen. But there are some things that you can do to stack things in your favor, right? You could learn from others who have already made those mistakes. You can invest in that education to go out there and figure out a way to do something. I like to say, find somebody who is a year, 2 years, 3 years ahead of you. And if that's where you want to be, learn from them, right? Whether you can learn from them directly or virtually. Um, there's a person who's a big inspiration to me. His name is Michael Hyatt. He's like a leader of leaders. And for the longest time, I never met him, but he was my mentor virtually because I read his books and he was with his family the way that I wanted to be with my family. And he and I now have since bonded and have become friends and have gone fly fishing together. It's really amazing. But he still continues to set that example, and I still continue to learn from him and ask him questions and have him guide me. You can have colleagues and friends around you who understand what you're shooting for. There is a very popular term in the entrepreneurial space and just in general called a mastermind group. And in a mastermind group, which might be anywhere between 2 people to up 10 or even more, I think 5 is the sweet spot. Essentially, it's a formal, in my case, weekly meeting where we get together. These are different entrepreneurs in different niches. I actually prefer it that way because you can cross-pollinate and learn a lot of things from somebody else doing something completely different. And then every week, one person is in the hot seat. And in the hot seat, you talk about what you're working on, what you're struggling with, one challenge, and the rest of the people there are focused on you. And it's just a beautiful hour where, with all those brains helping you, thinking things through, it's very difficult to do this alone because you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. You have to have other people to be able to not just kind of give you like, you got this, slay, you're awesome. Like, that's great to have that motivation. And we get that from friends and family, but you need people to also say, hey, I don't think that's right for you. Or that didn't really sit well with me. Here, let's talk about it, right? And to do that in an honest, safe space is so key. There's been so many times where I've needed somebody to go, to kind of like slap me out of a certain situation and go, Pat, I don't think you should promote that because it doesn't represent your brand the way I think it does.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, let's talk about that because I thought it was. And now I can get the outside perspective, which is likely what the rest of the audience is thinking. And I could get, I can come back to the light side. So having like a brain trust, if you will, is really important, I think. And you can just get started with one other person and build from there.
Yeah. What's your next book on?
So the book is about learning. That's like the overarching theme. But it's actually tentatively called the Lean Learner. There's like the Lean Startup.
Yeah.
There's this Lean Learner. And the reason it's called that is because I think we're at a point in time now where and I think we all know this, we're all suffering from content bloat. We are having so much information coming our way that we're just getting stuffed and we're hoarding it. And as a result of that, we're not taking the time to actually execute on anything and apply it. So how do we filter that learning and take in what matters and keep out what doesn't? It's very difficult to say no to learning. But when you say no to learning one thing, you're saying yes to going deeper into something that you care about or are passionate about, or, it's like back in the day, you were the genius when you could answer every Jeopardy question. Right? Oh my gosh, he's so smart. Like, you should be on Jeopardy. Like, that's what was praised. That's what was rewarded. Now it's not about having all the information anymore. In fact, a Google search is accessible to everybody. So it's not about getting access to the information. There's so much of it. It's how do we find the right information, the right time? And so this book will take a person through that. And how do we manage our time with relation to learning and doing? There's a strategy in the book that I've practiced for the last almost decade now called the 20% itch rule. And this isn't new. This is just what I've called it. But a lot of companies even practice this. And that is 80% of your time dedicated to the thing that you are committed to, right? If you are an entrepreneur, it's 80% of your time to your business and your work. If you are an employee, it's 80% of your time. Google does this. 80% of their employees work, 80% of their employees' time are for things that is in their job description. 20% of the time is for experiment, for play. And so in my life, 80% of my time is dedicated to my team and SPI and the things that I have responsibilities for and whatnot. 20% of time is for experimentation and play and choosing one thing to go into that time to see what happens. A few years ago, I used the 20% of my time to invent something. I've never done physical products before, but I now had space to play and do it such that even if it were to fail, it would still be a lesson at least and something I could share and help others with. But my videographer and I, we were actually at Vid Summit in 2018. And there we discovered that there was a need for a very sturdy tripod to hold in a person's hand. So we invented the Switch Pod. And the Switch Pod is now sold tens of thousands of those and through Amazon and our website. And it's become this now mostly passive business because somebody else is helping with the fulfillment and it's all mostly automated. And that's really amazing because a physical product, when people get it in their hands, it's like, oh my gosh, I could use this now. And just to see, like I've seen people in the wild use it. It's so amazing. It's so fun. Recently, starting at the end of 2020, early 2021, my 20% of time was now dedicated to a new YouTube channel in the Pokemon space. And this channel is called Deep Pocket Monster. And I've gone deep on it because in a year and a half, it has now 300,000 subscribers. It's making more money than my entrepreneurial channel. And there are brand deals. Pokemon's sending me stuff before anybody else now because they see me as an influencer. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
And it's because I've focused, like, first of all, it's my play, but because I'm not trying 100 things, I'm trying one thing and I want to learn everything there is about it. I can go deeper into it. So I can build relationships with people in that space. I can study it. I can, I can just understand it more that way. So this Pokemon thing is becoming a real thing, and I'm holding my first event for the Pokemon community in in Anaheim in 2023. And I'm hoping to have like 3,000 to 5,000 people there.
What?
It's kind of insane.
What was it about podcasting that drew you in? Because you started your podcast years ago before it became
2010.
Wow, before it became so mainstream.
It was because the Internet Business Mastery podcast, which started a couple of years before, changed my life. It was listening to that show on the train every day where I became friends with Jeremy and Jason, even though I never knew them or met them. I eventually did. But it was hearing their voice and their reassurance and their education that inspired me to one day create a podcast. Now, I said in December of 2008, once I created Smart Passive Income, that I was going to create a podcast. I bought all the equipment. I spent hundreds of dollars on like the microphone and all the stuff. December of 2008, that's how much I wanted to start a podcast. My first episode didn't come out until July of 2010 because I was so scared of what people would say and all the stuff that we talked about earlier about how other people might dislike what you're doing or think you're crazy or weird or the sound of my voice. I didn't like it. And I only wish I started sooner. I mean, I started early, but I could have started much earlier. And much like compounding interest, right? The earlier you get started, the more time there is for things to begin having that exponential growth.
Yeah. Do you have an exit strategy? I know we talked before about a lot of the passive income streams that you build when you're a content creator rely on you consistently putting out new content. And if you stop doing that, eventually the audience inflow will kind of die down.
Yeah, there's opportunities to sell what you build. I've had friends who've built software and then that creates passive income opportunities, but then a company comes in and says, hey, we'll pay you millions of dollars to own it. And then, okay, cool. And then now you can take that money and invest it somewhere else or follow some of your advice as far as where you might be able to put it. But do I have an exit strategy? Long term, yeah. I would love to. And, you're already on Smart Passive Income. You're seeing less and less of me because it's not about me anymore. It's about the team and the community. We're a community-based media company now. And so it's not even about me, which then offers the opportunity for me to step away even further if I wanted to, right? Where I can just remain maybe an advisor to the company or even sell it off and the audience and the team would still be taken care of. And then over time, I'd love to do more advisorship. I'm an advisor to 7 different companies right now where we chat once a month and we just have honest conversations about the growth of the business and I can offer my advice. And those are big, interesting money-making opportunities because I own shares of those companies now. And when those companies either go public or they get acquired, I, being a shareholder, will see a large check when that happens. And, to know that I've had an influence to help the company not just make money so I can make money, but so that everybody else can sort of enjoy that celebration is really cool and exciting.
Yeah.
So I do have more plans for that. And but as far as like, I'm going to sell the company, that's not like really in the books right now, although that could change. Who knows? But all I know is I'm going to continue to try to, like you, make an impact in the way that I can. And I feel like this is SPI, although it's a big stone, it's a stepping stone to something new.
What is the most meaningful feedback someone from your audience could possibly give you?
So if you're a content creator of any kind, the best comment you could ever receive is, I feel like you made this just for me. It's literally the best thing anybody could ever say, because that means you nailed it. You nailed the message, you nailed the tone and the language, and you got that messaging and positioning right. And as Jay Abraham says, if you can define the problem better than your target customer, they're going to automatically assume you have the solution. So the way to sell your product is to not ram it down a person's throat. It's to listen and to understand, how might I be able to connect this with you, and how might it serve you? It might not even serve them ultimately, in which case you need to go back or find a different group of people. But that is the best piece. I love when I hear that. I feel like you're speaking directly to me. It's the best.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that too. I read some comments on your channel, people hearing your story and saying like this, like there was a person who dedicated their whole life to the medical field and was like, I just felt every word and everything you were saying, right? Do you agree that that's like one of the best things you can hear?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think my story of quitting, the fact that it resonates with people makes me really happy, because I remember how scared I was in that decision. And when I was making that decision, I wished there would have been more people from my industry who had YouTube videos about why they quit. Because then I would know I'm not alone in the feeling of, is this what I want to do with the rest of my life?
Right.
So that's really impactful. And then now I really love when it's about money. Like, Erika, one of your TikToks saved me $5,000
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's great too. Like to see literally the impact that you're making. It's there's nothing like it.
One of my favorite images is going back to what you were talking about, how people think you're an overnight success. What they don't see is all the years you've been on YouTube before that. It's this image of this iceberg where you only see the top above the water, but you don't see all of the built up ice underneath.
Yeah.
And it's like people only see that success right after you've made it off the top of the water.
If you ask any successful creator, entrepreneur, like really what did it take to get here, you're going to see a giant block of ice underneath that surface, right? That's that phrase, tip of the iceberg, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's always so much more behind it.
Even TikTok, I feel like I did start TikTok less than a year ago, gained 17 million followers in less than a year.
That's awesome.
But I was on YouTube 2 years before that and learning how to create good hooks, how to be better on camera, because I'm very shy in front of a camera. I'm sweating right now because I get very nervous in front of cameras.
I probably am too, actually.
But it took a few years of being on YouTube to be able to find the confidence to go on TikTok and understand how to craft a video in a way that I could have better audience retention.
I think it was MKBHD. I interviewed him as a prominent YouTube tech reviewer, right? And he told me during the interview that his first 100 videos were for his first 100 subscribers. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, everybody needs to hear this, because we think we can just be MKBHD overnight. But it took him years. Mr. Beast, his first 200 videos were for his first 100 subscribers. They were like crappy Minecraft videos. And look at him now.
With all of the different things you have going on, how do you think about goals and how you want to spend the next year or 2 years or 5 years?
It's a great question. I had mentioned earlier, like when I got laid off, my goal was just to survive. And then it became thrive. And then it became a lot of philanthropic goals beyond that. And now like even bigger investments and impact and whatnot. And I think it always happens that way in phases, right? You have to change. And that means you have to kind of check in with yourself every once in a while. The biggest thing I did up front, and I talk about this in my book, Will It Fly? In fact, there's an exercise that I'd love to share that anybody can do sort of right now if they wanted to. And it's called the airport test. I learned this from a author named Jay Papasan, the author of The One Thing. He does this. He works with Keller Williams Realty. And they do this when they have employees come in and see if they can get hired or not. They run this test. So if you imagine that you are 5 years into the future, right? You take the DeLorean, you're 5 years into the future, and you're at an airport, and you're kind of sitting at the gate waiting for your next flight, and then you feel a tap on your shoulder, tap, tap, tap. And you look back and, oh my gosh, it's your friend that you haven't seen in like so long. And you both have time to kill, so you go into the lounge and you're just having a chat and catching up. And this friend of yours from a while back that you haven't seen in a while, they ask you, so Erika, like how are you? How are things going in your life right now? And you respond, life is awesome. Like I couldn't imagine it any better right now. With that in mind, 5 years from now, the things that support you being able to say that, you take a piece of paper, you fold it into 4 quadrants, and you pick 4 areas of your life that are most important to you. And you create a header on each quadrant with those 4 things. So for me, it might be family, finances, health, and play, for example. For you, it might be music or it might be something else, right? Those 4 things. And then in each of those quadrants, spend time writing the things that are happening in your life 5 years from now that support that life is awesome. What this does, this is not a wish list, by the way. I hope this happens. Like this is happening in your life 5 years from now to tell a person that you haven't seen in a while that life is awesome. When you finish this piece of paper, this becomes your guide for what to say yes to or what to say no to. If you are presented with an opportunity, does it actually fit the family goals that you have or the financial goals that you have? There was a opportunity I had in 2016 to become the CEO of a hosting company, a $1 billion hosting company. It would have meant tens of millions of dollars in my pocket. Very prestigious sort of office level job and just travel. But when I look at my paper, it's obvious that this is a no because I wouldn't be able to take my kids to school every day anymore, right? Immediately, I can just say no and be okay with it. This is an awesome life, but it's not my awesome life. Maybe somebody else can have it. So this is how I check in with myself every year. I rewrite this thing at the start of every year. My wife and I both do it so that we could see what her goals are and I can understand that and vice versa. We can see what we have in alignment. We could see what might need to be discussed because if I want to, live on a lake house, but she wants to live in a beach house, well, we're going to have to eventually talk about that. Let's talk about it now before it becomes an issue. So that's how I recommend. I mean, it's important to think about the future. And I think, 5 years into the future is just long enough where, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but it's close enough to know that you can get there. And I think because, things like technology and platforms are changing so fast, having these rules for your life and, understanding the other important people around you as well. You can't help but at least know you're headed in the right direction with the decisions that you make.
That's so interesting. So what is on your actual paper? What are you most excited about in the next 5 years to be focusing on?
Let's go through the categories, right? Health and fitness will likely remain the same. It's a semi-strict diet where I can just continue to have the energy that I want to have to be able to be with my kids in their last 5 to 8 summers that I have with them, to having enough creative energy to continue to do what I'm doing online, to just longevity, right? So that takes care of that category, really. With family, it really involves a lot of experiences, different experiences that we want to have together as a family. We want to go to Japan. We have not been to Japan. And now that I'm into Pokemon, this might actually be a very dangerous thing because I will come back with lots of things. But we want to have these experiences that the kids can take with them into adulthood that they'll remember and pass on to their kids and whatnot, if they choose to have kids. We want to go to Europe. We want to go back to Australia, and just we don't have much time left with them. So a lot of the family goals are related to those kinds of situations. A lot of the family stuff, especially now as the kids are becoming teenagers, are related to our relationship with them. 5 years from now, what would be awesome if my son was going through a tough time and he could come to me and just talk honestly about it, right? So now when it comes to the way that I discipline, or the way that April and I both discipline, April's my wife, how would it reflect that 5 years from now? How did the decisions we make now as far as how we parent help support that we want to have those honest conversations with our kids? It's not just my son, it's my son and my daughter down the road, right? So you can see how even thinking about that now helps us make decisions today, helps us guide that direction. We are thinking about the kids' future as far as, whether it's college or not, and their education, things like that. With relation to finances, I think 5 years from now, I am beyond SPI. It's still running. I'm still advising. I'm still a part of it. Maybe I'm just still the podcast host, but it's being completely run by others to help serve even more people. And that allows me to then focus more on some advisory roles, 10 companies in total at that time. I'm almost there already, but that's max, I think. As well as perhaps a new company in the fintech or software space that my partner and I have been discussing for a long time, but just hadn't had the time for, which is why we're making room for it now. I do want to have an impact in the world of education in some way and get on very large stages to talk about a lot of the things that I've learned that I can pass on to educators as far as where I think we are today with the world of education and how archaic it still is. We need to make some changes quickly for how quickly things are changing. And then, little things like I still want to go on date nights every night with my wife, or every week at least. Every night would be cool, but maybe she wouldn't like it that often. But once a week, things like those kinds of things are important to me. So you'll notice that there's no mention of, Lamborghinis or huge mansions, that's me. If that's on your list, that's cool too. Then what's awesome is you can make decisions now to help you get there. It's where we are working just because we're working. It's when we're working just to stay busy. It's when we're working without a goal in mind that we just end up losing energy and burning out or just being unhappy. It's like driving around a car with no destination in mind. You're eventually going to lose gas and get stranded. So know what your goals are so that you can at least go in that direction. And if you get off direction, you can have your version of a navigation system, i.e. a mastermind group, other people around you, just say, hey, you need to make a U-turn because you're going down the wrong direction and we know this is where you want to go.
So even though I'm surprised because you talk about money and smart passive income all day, every day, you don't have money goals or you don't have like a certain benchmark that you're targeting or?
It's a lifestyle target. It's not a money target, which I know those two things are related because you need a certain number of dollars to live a certain lifestyle. But we very much live currently below our means, and we have a lot of money in reserves and from emergent, like we've taken care of those things, and I don't talk about this very much as far as like, well, okay, I make all this money, where does it go? I mean, I have several investments. I am an angel investor. I have everything from an emergency fund to, SEP IRAs, like all the things. It's all taken care of. So why do I need more money, right? I can just invest that money into people, into team to buy me more time, or I can just donate that money. And that's what we've been doing. So
knowing everything that you know about passive income and everything that you've learned, if you were to start over today, no audience, no podcast, nothing, and your sole objective was to make the most amount of passive income possible, what would you do?
I would pick a audience that I would love to help. I mean, it's essentially the 5-1 strategy, right? But in addition to that, I would pick one platform to show up on, probably YouTube or a podcast right now, to provide value, to show up, to answer questions, to become that expert. And then again, find that one person to help, do it manually first, and then the next time around, do it in a more automated fashion. The answer to how do I make money is always going to be, well, how do you serve people best? That's the secret. What do people need help with? Help them do that. Make money. That's it.
So we have a closing tradition. The podcast is called Erika Taught Me, but really today is all about Pat Taught Me. So what do you want people to walk away from this podcast being able to say, Pat Flynn taught me this?
Pat Flynn taught me, or I'm teaching you, that you could start small. You can help one person and learn so much from doing that. And through that process, you have to also understand that you're not going to be perfect. In fact, that's why we sort of like in science, when you're trying something, you have a little petri dish to experiment with, because heck, things can get out of control, but at least it's controlled in that one little tiny space so that you can have a better try next time, or you can learn what you did wrong and do it better the next go around. failing is okay. In fact, I often recommend people to fail faster because every fail is an opportunity for learning. FAIL, as I once heard, is an acronym for first attempt in learning. So learn by failing. And that's a hard thing to do when you grow up when you grew up, like when I grew up, where it was all about being perfect. I mean, I'm half Asian as well. And that culture of, A minus, why not A, was like very much a part of my growth. And that was the hardest thing to get over, because if you have that approach, that perfectionist approach, when building something, it's never going to come out. You're never going to help anybody.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave a review. It really helps support what we're doing. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday on a brand new episode of Erika Taught Me.